So let's start from the distinction between direct and indirect cost. So we have the direct versus the indirect. A cost can be defined as direct if this resource can be univocally and exclusively assigned to one unit of our cost object. So if we have our example, so if we have our table as a cost object, the direct cost is represented by those resources that in a univocal way can be assigned to the realization of one unit of our table. So we will have as a direct cost the wood, because we can identify exactly the quantity of wood which is used in order to realize one unit of our table. Another example is represented by the employee. Which kind of employee? The employee that is directly involved in the realization of the final table. So someone who is physically in charge of realizing the final element. And the reason why is because he's involved physically in the production process, so we can define the time devoted to the realization of the table and so at the same time the cost. So if we want to generalize with respect to a manufacturing company, the direct costs can be defined as the cost of direct material and as the cost of the direct labor, because we can identify exactly the amount of these resources that can be used in order to realize one unit of our table. We have the opposite instead if we have indirect costs. In this case, we are talking about resources that are used jointly in order to realize more than one unit. So again, we have resources that are absorbed by the final product, but they are used by more than one product. For example, we can have, in the case of our table, the equipment. In this specific case, we have the circular saw, and basically we can say that this equipment is used in order to realize more than one unit. So it is used for realizing not just one table, but several. So this is used jointly by more than one final element. And the same happens like if we have some commercial cost, so for example the marketing or the commercial activity. So the man who is in charge of selling the tables, he will be in charge of selling more than one unit. So we can say that these resources are indirect because they are absorbed by more than one unit of our output. We can say that these indirect costs are also defined as overhead, which is written as OVH. And basically, again, with respect to a manufacturing company, we can distinguish overhead between the so-called manufacturing overhead. So in this case, we have indirect resources that are related to the production process. So for example, the equipment, or we can have the supervisor within the production process. We can have the depreciation of other instrumentation, the cost of the setup. So all of the resources that are involved in the production process. Another category of indirect cost is defined as non-manufacturing overhead. Non-manufacturing overheads include something like selling expenses, general expenses, administrative expenses. We are talking about resources which are, again, indirect, and moreover, they are not related to the production process, so the marketing activity, the selling, and the commercial. This is the overall distinction between what is direct and what is indirect.